Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon. It's Shirley with Spirit of Matter. And this is for the obligatory Jupiter-Mars conjunction square Saturn that occurs around 14 August and begins in 16 degrees Gemini, the conjunction, where it's going to square 17 degrees Gemini. And I'd like to open with a moment of silence for some of our colleagues and people and loved ones who have moon in the middle phase of Gemini. So we're going to stand for a moment of silence, some of which also go through Pluto on the descendant, back and forth. And that's going to be 2.5 years of silence, if that's your partner. And now that we've covered that, let's talk about the big giant frustration that we're heading in August. So first of all, we're going to have this entire thing ruled by shady Mercury. So not only is it going to be a hard aspect, it's also, and I touched on that when I touched on the Mercury retrograde, but not only is it going to be a hard aspect, it's also going to be not the final thing. And you kind of want to think about this as the big boss calls you for an update on your project, and they have to give you their editorial notes, okay? And they tell you, if I began with Model UN things, so think about when you have a resolution, okay? And you file for the document to the judges, okay? And they sit and they tell you, correct this, this is wrong, this you cannot do, this is illegal, but okay, this illegal, but not okay, this we want to prove, this, that. Then you correct for all these things, and then you get another list. This is basically how you write resolutions in Model UN, not in the UN, I believe. I think they don't... They do other things with children. But yes. But the thing is that we're going to have a little bit of that kind of a transit. And you would ask me, Shirley, why would somebody not tell me everything I have to correct so that by the time I sit to correct this, I have everything corrected? And the editorial answer is always, if I told you everything you have to correct on this version, you would suicide, which is appropriate because we're going to have, I believe, Venus on the 11th degree, so in Virgo, and we're going to have the Sun on the 22nd degree of Leo, which means, of Leo? Yes, it's August. Which means that the entire thing is going to be in a conversation with the little sun. So let's break it apart and put it together. First of all, we're going to have Mars in Gemini, which means fast, quick actions, funny actions, satirical actions, but can also be sharp words. The foot in the mouth. And the foot in the mouth is only exaggerated by the planet that rules our feet, which is Jupiter. Rules our bum is true, but also our feet by Pisces. And Jupiter is called the Great Benefic, and you know there are only certain medical situations where you want to be positive, and ailment is not one of them. Jupiter tends to make everything big. So whatever mistakes Mars makes are going to be giant. And so in general, Jupiter in Gemini is the foot in the mouth. Okay, let's just begin with that. Because Jupiter is big and Gemini rules for small things. Jupiter rules the feet, okay? And Gemini rules the tiny dolls from glass that you have, okay? So this is where we already get the foot in the mouth, and then Mars is going to come in and make it a happy accident. So now we get words that shouldn't have been said coming in a very big emphasized way, where you say, oh, the foot in the mouth. Okay, this is going to be the foot in the mouth, and you're going to be checked by Saturn. And Saturn is ruled by this Jupiter. So Saturn is then essentially is detrimental. Okay, it's kind of like the big boss editor has something to say to you, but it's kind of misguided. They don't see the whole picture because the ruler of Saturn is right now where the trees are and not where the forest is. You say, but the trees are in the forests. Yes, you could say it like that, but it still doesn't give you the picture of the forest, but the picture of the tree. There's only so many things you could do with that. Some of them you need to do. For example, to pay attention that there are such things as like those individual trees, and some of them might not be the same type of tree. And it gives you more detail. But it doesn't give you the large ecosystem that Pisces attempts to give. Because Pisces is the whole picture. Saturn tries to create for boundaries within this very malleable definition, which is in general quite satirical. And I talked about it when I talked about Saturn in Pisces about 2 years ago. And then we have Jupiter that rules this Saturn in Mercury sign. Mercury is good placement, but shady. It means that Mercury right now, even though it is good, even though it is okay. So it's like from the details point of view, we can take care of that, but not at this time. It's very much like somebody telling you, okay, let's think about technology going wrong, because it will. So let's say you have a part in your airplane, like the engine. And so you're running with the engine of another company for the same plane, and usually this works. But then you need to fix something. So you go for the place where you need to fix something, and they say, you see, usually I have no problem to deal with this problem. But you see, that thing that went wrong here is not something that this engine is good for. I need actually the original engine of this plane, but right now it's ran out because there was a fluid in the factory. I could be delineating actual news. I don't know. I could be delineating actual news with that one because it can give that accuracy. So this is like, usually we can take care of it. Yes, usually this part covers for this part, but it's that particular detail. Or at this time, we can't do it. Okay, for some, one of our employees got, I don't know, a broken nail. It's given just that, okay? Fingers, Mercury, broken Mars, nail Saturn. It's in Pisces. I could be delineating actual events with this one to the detail. But this is the frustration, okay? And Mars in Gemini wants to make quick moves, but Mercury limits for the size of the move. Then comes Jupiter. They say, no, you should make a giant leap, but it's a giant leap of a baby, of a toddler. Okay? So There's great impatience. We already want to get it done. But Saturn doesn't understand, why do you already want to get it done? You just haven't started yet. Okay? What is this thing that you already want to get it done? Okay? And that can be something that is editorial, managerial, media related. Oh, things Mercury. Okay? We have a deadline next week. We need this article to be ready. But somebody haven't started it yet. Yes, it needs to be ready tomorrow. We need you to go over for what we wrote here. Yes, I see what you wrote here. There's so much to fix. I can give you the first version. And you're like, well, we're not going to have the entire editorial note. We can't change all that. All of these conversations can take place. And during a shady Mercury, there's something that you will have to revise. So if you're, for example, if you're writing academic papers, articles, you might have an extra editorial notes, or you will have to publish another note that apologizes for something. Okay, so we forgot to mention this guy. Oh, that guy dropped. Okay, oh, we're supposed to go boycott that company. Okay, we didn't know. Somebody that you didn't ask to respond. Okay, and they're like, well, they're not in the office. But you have to ask them to respond. So there can be delays. You may not be able to publish something completely until that time, where it mightn't be outdated. Or you will have to revisit that even yet again. So you could publish something incomplete, and then you would have to take it back, or maybe for some legal issues to publish apology, or publish this, or publish that. So there is all kinds of, we couldn't get the response of, we couldn't get the instructor to go over this again. And those things can be a bit of a lot of an issue. Budget things, real estate things, words, okay, publicity, even astrology, okay, technology. All these things right now are sensitive, and Saturn it gives duration to things. So Saturn retrograde means that it is something that came up. It's not something that came up and out of nowhere, because the theme that you are dealing with, you already tended to. So it's bringing the theme of Saturn. You want to think about when Saturn was in 17 degrees Pisces, what were you tending to? Because this thing is going to have a threshold. And it also tells you that Saturn is going to visit this point again. So even after Mercury gets out of the shade, you're gonna in 6 to 9 months meet that yet again when Saturn is direct and going over 17 degrees Pisces. So there is something that requires for almost surrender, because you just have to deal with things, okay? There's the foot in the mouth, there's the dealing with things, it has long-term implications, and Saturn in Pisces is not so predictable, so it can be over a silly thing, but the thing that's going to come up already came up. It's just that now it's going to be touched on from a different angle and in a crisis kind of way. There's going to be conflict, friction. You want to look at your Pisces house, you want to look at your Gemini house, and you want to look at your Leo and Virgo house. All of them are going to play a role in this. So you see, it's very difficult to break it down for the 12 ascendants, okay? But I began with that. If you have something in the middle degree of Gemini, Pisces, to some degree Virgo, and to lesser degree Sagittarius, you're gonna feel it more than others, okay? this is going to be more evident for you than for some other people, because it's going to be right on that planet. And there's going to be frustration, and depending on the nature of the planet, that is, so we're talking about the mutable axis middle phase, okay? So around, let's say, 15 to 19 degrees is going to be most felt of the mutable axis, okay? Pisces, Virgo, particularly Gemini and Pisces, but also Virgo and Sag. And this is where a frustration takes place, and it's going to be lasting for a while. Okay, so you can predict even a year timeline for this frustration, even more if you count the synodic cycles. It's a conflict that you can't remediate just yet fully. It's not where you want to think about winning, because Mars, Gemini can rule play, and Mars can rule winning, the desire to have resolution. It's also the phase of Gemini where we decide between two things, okay? But you want to be cautious of see it as win and lose. I addressed it when I addressed Mercury retrograde, because this is something that can trigger a very little ego Sun in 22 degrees Leo that is going to be very difficult to tackle. What you definitely don't want to do is finesse as much as you can. Okay, someone's not conscious, but to try to finesse, whether in business, in physical sexuality, okay, kind of like Marsy things. This might backfire very hard, okay? People could get pregnant with this one. As Mars, Jupiter. Mars rules penis, Jupiter rules sperm, okay? Semen, sperm, but both of them pretty much. And Gemini rules children. Okay, so this could be a happy accident, but if you did something for like to finesse, or like you could be, don't be the person that just wants to get laid and will tell any lie to do so, and then end up getting somebody pregnant and having to pay for the rest of the life of the child. That can happen with that one. Okay, I said what I said. I should do the Uranus one too. I said what I said, okay, but this is like a worst case scenario. But the best case scenario could be a happy accident that you have to deal with. Could be the foot in the mouth. It can also be a friction where you release something that needed to be said, because this is a shady Mercury. Things that needed to be said are said here. So it's not all bad, but definitely you're going to have to rephrase, revise some. There's going to be a big foot in the mouth moment. So, but Gemini allows you to laugh at yourself, is going to be very useful here. Saturn might actually remediate this aspect, because Saturn comes with the friction and kind of checks you out. It keeps you in check. This you can do, this you cannot do, this we can regulate, this we cannot regulate. It's going to be a big frustration. You might even want to rebel Saturn, but you might run out of energy to do that. Okay, it's also a growth aspect. So this is where your juvenile ideas run into perhaps an outdated and archaic thinker, and both this outdated and archaic thinker have something to say and you have something to say, but the truth is neither here nor there. Okay, so you want to accommodate for the fact that there are going to be epic fails, epic accidents, epic foot in the mouth moments. There's going to be a lot of popcorn running, big frustrations, okay? And think about it, Jupiter Gemini will try everything. Jupiter Gemini is just the one that would tell you, I want to live outside of the city, outside of the this, out of the then. It's August, and then where you're going? I need air condition. I'm taking the bus. Where you traveling to? Well, the mall or something. Okay? Not a true story. Not at all. Not at all a documentary. What are you doing while you travel? I'm recording a blog about how we need to intercept 2030 and we need to get out of the cities. Where you live in the largest city in my country. It's not built yet. I thought it's a village. Okay? Not a documentary at all. so, so this is Jupiter Gemini in general. Mars brings in the chili peppers. Okay? Mars Jupiter is where you try the chocolate with the chili and then you need to go to the bathroom. And Saturn be like, what were you thinking that you're doing? And like, I just wanted to try something new. I could be, again, okay? Surely you're joking, Sister Spooky. I could be, again, delineating real detailed events. So be careful with the chili chocolates that you give to your elders. So, if that's what you're into. Anything more we want to know about it? Okay, when we talk about another thing that comes up is money issues. Okay, this is where you want to have like a big giant expense that you may or may not regret later. And Saturn's like, you don't have the credit for it. Now, it can be something as funny as Abraham Hicks says we always need to carry $100 and we need to use money like we have money. And then you say, I'm going to manifest for that. I'm going to buy for this giant meal that has weird spices in it in this luxury restaurant. And then the car declines. Okay? There's something that's giving epic punchline, epic fail. It can also be giving failed army, I have to admit. So aircraft might be risky. I don't want to say it, but cars can fly, and not because they have wings. Just today on the road I saw a car that went out of the pavement somewhere, and then the bus driver had a problem with the brakes. That's two different events. We're driving the bus, there were problem with the brakes. I live in a mountain area, so there's and a mother to a child asked him, can you go without the brakes? Can you go without the brakes for the babies? So this is already perfecting, folks. So now, the good thing about this, it's going to be epic laugh. You're gonna laugh at yourselves. Just, try not to drive anything, which is going to be impossible because you just want to suddenly fly somewhere. But also mind your wishful thinking, because I can say cars could be flying, okay? It's given just that, so there can be accidents, and there can be, again, two things to be cautious about is the road rage, okay? And where you at in there, if you're like around crazy drivers and some, it's not much you can do about this. But I don't know, take a peridot with you, just like do something. And if you're the type of person to try to finesse people for like, oh, I just want to get, lucky or whatnot, You might get overly lucky. Okay. so so this is something you want to be cautious, because this thing have long-term implications, particularly if it is about accidents. Yes, unfortunately, I have to, a moment of truth. But also if it is around like sexuality and stuff, um, this is where you want to be extra cautious and to check for what you would do to get somewhere, because you might get where you wanted, but it's going to have long-term implications. So you understand all of the things that are symbolized here. You want to take it to the humorous placement. You want to take it, even with rap battles, it can be risky because Mars is sharp here. And even if you're not the usual type to say words that can wound people, this one can. And it's going to have implications, going to have long-term implications of what you said. So sometimes it's just like, that what can you do? Okay, what can you do? But also things that can help you. Lavender. I find, yes, lavender is moon, but also lavender is Mercury. Lavender. Saturn rules rocks. So you can use like aquamarine, which is a rock. Here's it's a crystal, but it's also to do with communication for the Mercury shady stuff. Okay. Spices. Okay, so Mars rules something that's a bit spicy. Jupiter rules cinnamon. So you can think about ginger, cinnamon. If it is not like competing who can have the most strongest gamber shots and stuff like that, that can end up bad as well. And you might want to take these silly competitions, even if you're not usually the type. Don't do drinking game. I cannot emphasize. You will end up in hospital. Okay. If you try drinking games, or you will, and I know this is the Olympics now, but if you try that, you will end up in hospital. I promise you that. Okay. Especially if you're the kind of like holistic healer that just don't want to go there. And so you want to especially be mindful of the type of silly games, competitions, battles that people do that end up bad. This is a notorious combination for that type of things. Trim your nails ahead of time. This is note to self. Okay. Trim your nails ahead of time. That might not be the time to use anything where you have to shave or where you have to, I don't know, trim your hair or something like that. That might not be, okay, the best of time. It's just a potent for giant mishap. So Mars rules oils. And here you want to be cautious with like rancid oils or too much dosage of stuff like that. Because on the one hand, you could do like an essential oil blend. On the other hand, there's so many ways you could go overboard with that. So you want to like make sure you're not like trying to prepare something yourself, although it is exactly the time where you would want to do that. Yes, it's all those kind of things. Mundanely, there can be, well, what is the moon doing? Because the moon is, what's the moon? Where is the moon in this? It can be a time of a conflict, but I'm not sure it's like starting conflict, or because of the synodic cycle it can be starting, but I don't know where the moon is. And so mondaily some conflict can begin that can have a duration or implication for long time. Okay, but the good things about this aspect is Gemini has no filters, and it's both the bad thing about this aspect but it's also the things that needed to be said, they will be said. The things that you wanted to get out of you, you will not stay with the full belly on something after this transit. Everything is purged, is in the air, in the open, okay? Because Mercury is going to travel to Virgo, which it's not that Virgo doesn't have a filter, it's just it consciously chooses not to use it every once in a while. And when it's Virgo done, it is a big deal. They're informed. They're not playing the devil's advocate. They have tested both sides and they have an opinion, and it's very much informed. So this is where the Virgo can be really funny, but also really annoying if this opinion is based on like the little details and not the full picture. Because you're very informed with the trees, but it's a freaking forest we're talking about. So level of analysis is kind of like the only way in which you could counter a Virgo argument. But good luck with that. They're adaptable. So so this is where that can get okay. It can be difficult words, difficult conversations. Somebody says something that is right but not in the right way. We are all susceptible to be both the recipient and the perpetrators of that, okay, for lack of a better term. So this is exactly, and it's fated to have longer implications. So this is where we can understand that this is what comes with the times, and perhaps be radically accepting of that. And this is where we can count on the words that need to be said. Okay, but just today, as this aspect is getting closer and closer, I had suddenly my neighbor coming up to all the way up to my entrance, almost entering inside the house because the door was open, and they had something to say to me that basically they were very likely keeping for a very long time, and something that I wasn't aware of that was impacting them. And there was like, I don't want to see it happening ever again. It's like, you never told me that it happens. Okay, that's the kind of arguments that you could have with people. And then if that's not enough, I had my parent in the house and they wanted to argue with them, and I was like, no. But that was exactly what is happening with this lack of filter, is that anything that you have been keeping inside, that you have had difficulty to say, you would definitely be saying that. It's just that it's going to be like a huge outburst where the energy meets the other person in a way that, even though you are absolutely right to say that and they weren't aware, is very likely to create some sort of crescendo there where it takes some time, but it's still an air sign. And the only trouble is when Mercury is going to be in Leo. And that is but this is not for August 14, okay? August 14 is still safe. Okay, we got the sun there. I think Mercury is still safe, so still mutable, still changeable, still debatable, but it's going to be taking a while to heal the effect of how things were said or done in this situation. Hello there. That is the big drama. It's a big drama. But I want to again emphasize, and I want you to think again, because you're going to forget it. So I want you to think again and understand that it's very important that what was said, even if it came out in that way. Yeah, Mama. Yeah. So and it's very important that it's no longer kept inside, even if it created a huge argument that's difficult to recover from. If the things weren't said by now, it would get even worse. So this is where it's kind of like you have those really ugly wounds, okay, that you need to intervene, to pop this bubble, okay? You need to pop a certain bubble, and you understand that, you wait for it to grow, but then it doesn't grow. It doesn't explode in itself, and you have to pop the bubble. And when you pop the bubble, it's really yucky. But then this is the yuck that you're going to tend to, and if you didn't pop that bubble, there would be even more yuck to tend to. That's the friction. And so, and all this is happening on a Mercury retrograde. This is creating kind of an extra annoying stuff, because even after we pop that bubble, what is very likely to be is that you're going to have to deal with rephrasing, adding something, if it's like a business deal or money exchange, or adjusting the terms and conditions of something, and then with the Saturn, remediating, healing for like the emotional impact this whole thing had on you, of how things came about, and because of this conjoining, like Jupiter is a big planet that makes everything big, and Mars is quick, and Gemini is air sign, and everything is like, now I think like this, tomorrow I think like that, but you got that frame of now I said this, tomorrow I say that, and that frame is enlarged and creates a long-term effect, and it's released in such a way that all parties have difficulty remediating for the effect of the how things were said, the jolly spirit, because it's going to be a jolly spirit with that. It's the trickster spirit, but it's also the child spirit. It's the comedian spirit, okay? It's the joke that wasn't supposed to be made. But it can also take the form of physical accidents and stuff like that. So you want to look at where Gemini is at, where Pisces, and what there in your chart is involved. Is there going to be like a banking issue, big banking crisis and so on? It can be. I don't know if it'll go as minima, but the reason that it can be, again, Mars rules real estate, banking, the fiscal transactions, Saturn, interest rates, Jupiter, bubbles, so a real estate bubble pop, or alternatively, and I think Krasi and Lada said that, particularly with the real estate, so it can be a bubble popping, but it can also kind of be, a giant formation of something. So it can be, it can also be the formation of a bubble, because Mars is starting something and Jupiter is big. And so it can also be changing interest rates that start a bubble and gets people to do something. Yes, because Mars is the breaking of something, we think it's a bubble pop, but it can also be a bubble creation, inflation, inflammation, inflation. So it's not just the popping of a bubble, but the inflation of that bubble. And so it can give us both of these effects. So it can be giving us a crisis of inflation, because this is a square between Saturn and Jupiter, okay, which can give both deflation and inflation, because Saturn is in Pisces, and Pisces is a bit of a dual dreamer, unpredictable, okay, but also unclear. So definitely lack of clarity, but it's also giving us something that is a rare event. Jupiter takes 12 years to surround the zodiac. It means that, but this square is happening twice in those 12 years. Okay, so it's something. Okay, maybe a bit more if you think about the retrograde and so on. Yes, but you know what I mean. In general, it's going to be in 2 points, around 2 points in entire 12 years. So 12-year cycle is not like a 29 the Great Depression cycle, okay? Although Great Depression is something compatible with Saturn in Pisces. Saturn depression, Pisces ruled by Jupiter, great. So I'm not saying that's going to happen. I'm just saying that it's once in 28 years, but it's not the thing of a century in itself. Yes, we also have Uranus on Algol, and it's giving the times where we tried to arrest the Baron Rothschild and ended up with the Holocaust and the nuclear war and the state of Israel. So for some people that's the greatest disaster. I don't know, depending who you ask. So there can be a great disaster. Maritime issues can occur, but Pluto in Aquarius is giving air as well, and so that can be kind of like air pollution because of some oil leakage. That I think I'm delineating something that's actually going to happen, and it's both a maritime disaster, but it's also affecting the air quality. Okay, kind of like you think about when Israel bombed the oil fields of Yemen, and it was at sea, so you understand that that's kind of like something that can happen. But funnily enough, there can genuinely be an accident here. Mars is giving accidents. And so usually, as ever, nothing is by accident, but here it can be by accident. And it can be a giant one. So nobody's going to believe that it's an accident. But there can also be lies around it, because Mercury rules lies and deceit as much as truth and trustworthiness and childish innocence. For Mercury, it's basically, if it's allowed to tell the truth, it will. But when do we have in mundane politics something where people are allowed to say the truth? Okay, that you'll get it a lot in telepathy when people are having this integrity with themselves and they want the truth out, but you usually don't get that. And you know, sometimes there is surprises where you get something that's genuine, and you wouldn't expect that for them to be telling the truth, but they tell you the truth to tell you how it is. And even simply because they need to tell it to somebody, or they want to tell the truth. So you'd be surprised how reluctant people are to lie, to deceive, to cheat in general. And this, especially with these Gemini placements, they are adaptable, but it doesn't mean that they like to do that. And that's another thing to consider. So will we have like banking crash or digital things changed? I think that is possible. and all certain people that had a dream that suddenly they cannot take money out of the bank. We can have something like that, and it will have long-term. You know what I remember? Do you remember the time where in Germany people took out euros from the ATM and they started to dissipate? Okay, it's giving that. Okay, so people are gonna want to hold cash, and that can be because with the liquid and for chemical reasons that the bill doesn't hold, and you don't have the bill in your hand, it liquidates the money. Now, in general, this is an aspect that liquidates the money. I talked about giant purchases, but your card can decline and so on. Fraud can happen around this time. So this is where you really want to be aware of what this transit means, because it's given all kinds of funny things with money, with cash, with technology, all the hacking into systems, the kind of things we saw when Mars was with Uranus on Algol. Now we still have Uranus Algol, and Algol still blinks every 3 days. Okay, I don't know if she's going to be minima, but we have here another signification, except in addition to the Uranus Algol. And while it's not the Mars Uranus, we saw that those more local planets can do a lot of things. Saturn rules Pluto, okay? Jupiter rules Neptune right now in the skies. And yes, we have Venus ruling Uranus, but Venus in Virgo, so she's ruled by that Mercury. So all the three giants are conspiring in the sky to do for something that can be big. And here is something that very likely needed to happen. If something collapses here, it didn't need to happen in this way, but we needed to change from the core, okay? And change from the core is also economic, also land, real estate, so political changes. Will there be like another war or something like that? It said such thing can happen even by accident. So this is, it's a bottle of mishap. It's a big bottle of mishap. It's a giant mishap, and that can occur in so many ways in so many places. But it's a bubble that needed to pop. Okay, especially in getting a bubble that needed to pop, but it's also given inflation. Bubble that needed to pop, inflation, inflammation. Okay, heated events, something going hot and cold, popping, exploding. Challenger, oh my God, I hope Elon doesn't think to launch anything to the heavens at this point. I hope Starlink, watches SpaceX. I hope it's not doing any such thing. Actually, I think this, if somebody is in contact with the person, then it would be good to talk about this, because it's given Challenger. What was the story of Challenger? Basically, they had a rubber that connects kind of like the spaceship to the rocket. Okay, they didn't have to break free from the rocket, but you launch it with the rocket and then the rocket falls. And there's a little bit of rubber that connects the two, and then it kind of explodes. But the weather was too cold to launch it, because what happens with the rubber, the elasticity breaks under certain temperatures. People knew that. They knew it was too cold, but they did it anyway. They did it anyway, and usually at such a date for human life you need to postpone. And what happened? The Challenger exploded in the air. One of the greatest space disasters that we have. And even if you say, well, this happened in, I don't know, for movies and so on, yeah, but that was a real people going, flying off there and exploding, and that was the Challenger disaster. This is given Challenger. Okay, this one is given Challenger. So even if you treat it like a movie set, this is still the case. So I would really hope that they're not going to launch anything. Aviation, I said, again, if you have to fly, there are talismans, there are crystals, there are many things you can do, and it also depends on how does it meet your chart, okay? Because it doesn't necessarily mean that you will be, if it's not meant for you, a plane could crash and you could come out alive. And if it's fated, nothing can crash and you can cross the street and so on. So this is something we need to remember. I don't want to scare you off too much, but all of those scenarios to various degrees are possible because Mars is with Jupiter. It's going to be a big fiscal, but also big or physical. Not a day. Again, it's not a day to like. It's not an election that I would use for like the bedroom or something like that. I have to admit. Although you might be having great passions at this time. And also if you like to have like athletic or physical, yes, it's difficult because you have to use this energy somehow, but it's giving accidents. So I don't know what to tell you, okay? No, I wouldn't call on Aldebaran here unless it's like very rare cases, because you already have so much Mars. And so it's giant Mars, okay? You already have so much Mars. And here, call on Christ, but I wouldn't call on Aldebaran here. Maybe you would disagree with me. Unless it's like a legal issue. And then even still very much to make sure you're not just calling Aldebaran, but you're doing it with spiritual alignment, whether it's Archangel Michael, Christ consciousness, whatever you work with, your gods that have the symbolism of divine alignment. Okay, so not just to be victorious, but to be, and not even just to be righteous, but to be victorious in a way that is in your favor. Otherwise, Aldebaran can give what we call Pyrrhus winning. So, and this will have long-term effects. Okay, note to self. So yes, I think we're pretty much done talking about this collision. It will sustain. Okay, it will. Whatever the effects are, it will have long-term implications that we are going to have to deal with lovingly and compassionately. So thank you for watching.